I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who's online with us today to remember a very, very dear friend, Lubna Chaudhry, who left us too soon, not due to COVID, but due to her autoimmune condition. I accepted when SDPI asked me to organize this session, I accepted not only because other friends in Pakistan and other activists, some of whom did not know Lubna too well, wanted to know more about what kind of a person Lubna was. Uh, I also accepted to organize this because I wanted Lubna's daughter Noor to know about her mother's life in Pakistan and how valued she was when she was here and also when she was not here. Um, I wanted to say thank you to the SDPI conference and IT teams for helping put this session together. In particular, I wish to acknowledge and thank Uzma, Harun, Aisha, um, Adnan, Asim, Nadir, Imran, Tayyaba, Zehra, and Abdullah. I know they have gone beyond the call of duty, sitting late at night, ensuring that everything goes smoothly, putting photographs together, arranging, rearranging them, 200 times and always saying, never complaining, always saying, yes, sure, this can be done. I would say, can you delete this photograph number 69 from here? And they would say, yes, I can. And it was amazing work and cooperation. But to come to the most difficult part, not only was arranging and rearranging photographs chronologically very difficult emotionally, but it's also very difficult to talk about a friend that one has known all one's life. How do I capture the multiple qualities that Lubna had? How can I capture the very being of Lubna that was so alive? Uh, Lubna was one of the most generous persons, one of the most honest persons I have ever known. She fought for social justice through her teaching, her activism, her writing, her poetry. I loved her zest for life, her insights, her sense of humor. We shared many silly jokes together, and many of our friends from SDPI and Islamabad would know about those jokes, and I'm sure all of us remember them. There were other silly things we would share and laugh about. We bought books together. We bought so many books together. Also, we loved to buy for SDPI library that some people started feeling that we were just buying books for ourselves, but we would charge SDPI for them. But they can come and look at our homes and they're full of books too. We just loved to build the library. We loved to share knowledge. Lubna was just great at it. She would joke about all these things. Also, she didn't mind it. Uh, there was so much that we shared that it's hard for me to talk about. But what I wanted to say was, let me talk about SDPI and Lubna. Um, First of all, I just wanted to acknowledge that it was due to Lubna's idea that the SDPI annual conference became a sustainable annual event. Before that, sometimes the conference would happen, sometimes it wouldn't. We got an offer of some $20,000 from SIDA, and it was the Canadian SIDA, and it was Lubna's idea to hire a coordinator and ensure that, first of all, we had thought, what will we do with $20,000? We can't have a huge conference. And then Lubna said, let's hire a coordinator and we'll ask different donors to pitch in. And so after that, the rest is history. The conference has been happening every year, but it was Lubna's idea. And she was the one who, I think, convinced Uzma to come on board. All of us did, but it was Lubna's idea. So, so the conference itself, I think, owes a lot to her. Um, Then Lubna was on the recruitment committee. She headed the recruitment committee when she was at SDPI. And if I'm not wrong, she was, when she headed the recruitment committee, Abid Suleri was hired at SDPI. So once again, Lubna did have a role to play. Her academic brilliance, of course, we all knew about. Shahrukh was the executive director when Lubna joined, and she had to do a presentation. And she came up with the idea that she wanted to study knowledge systems because she did not want Western knowledge to be the only dominant knowledge produced at SDPI. And she felt that we needed to look at our own local, indigenous, organic knowledge. And that is what she worked on. Not only that, Lubna and I applied together for a very competitive SSR, and we both got our proposal rated the best that year, and we got the grant. So this takes me, of course, in the process of grant writing, we had lots of disagreements and agreements. It was on partition and how Pakistan, how Punjab and KP fed during partition. Then what this brings me, of course, when the grant, part of the grant had us going to the visas, of course, were just as difficult as they are today. In those days, people would go directly to the High Commission, and what happened was people would stay there at night waiting to be in line to be the first in line. So, a limited number of people could make it into the visa section. And so we went, I drove Lubna early in the morning, like at 5 a.m. or something, so she could stand in line. And then when it was time, like close to 8 a.m., there was a huge commotion, and she saw the police coming. Before that, some people approached her that if she would give them some money, they could ensure that she would go through to the inside the commission, so she could get her turn at the visa. She, of course, refused. But then, when there was the commotion and there was a lathi charge by the police, and the police dispersed people, she saw that some of the guards and those touts who were collecting money pushed the people who had paid inside the gate of the High Commission, and others who had been waiting all night couldn't make it inside. Lubna, of course, didn't make it, and she was enraged also at what had happened, and people were badly hurt. Then she came to know that this was a regular feature every morning at the British High Commission. So she wrote to them and said, of course, she didn't get her visa. She refused to go the next day. But she wrote to them and said, this is what happened, never got a response, and then went ahead and organized a session, an SDPI. We used to have seminars, I'm sure they're still there. She organized a seminar calling journalists, newspaper people, the police of the diplomatic enclave, because that's where SDPI was located those days. And of course, some of the applicants who hadn't made it, and some of whom were hurt. Some of them had, like, gashes on their foreheads because they had fallen. And she just felt it was insane for people to be treated that way. So, of course, it came out, and the bribery came out, the conditions, in the scorching sun, there was no shed, no area, waiting area for people. There was no drinking water available. There were no toilets. All of this was highlighted, and she managed to shame the British High Commission into, apologizing for what had happened. They promised they would look into it, and then they made the sheds, they put in toilets, they put in drinking water over there. That was Lubna's activism. Of course, she was there on many other occasions, protesting alongside all of us and my children, on women's rights, on hudud issues. The one time she was taken by the police into the bus, she got beaten up too. But that was Lubna, always ready to to take a beating, but stand for her rights and for other people's rights. So I will stop here, but just sort of let you know that I organized this plenary according to in a sense, in a chronological order, because I wanted to talk about Lubna not only as a brilliant academic or as the best teacher in Binghamton, where I mean, with the award for best teaching, but as a human being, as a mother, as a friend, as a colleague. And I hope we are able to capture that tonight. Thank you. Thank you, Aisha. Over to you.
We were meant to play some music against these photos, but there are copyright issues, so we can't do that, but we'll show the slideshow.
So these were the institutions Lubna studied at. This is Lubna and her youngest brother, who unfortunately passed away in an accident. This is Lubna and her siblings. Lubna and her mother and her brother. Lubna's siblings and nephews. Lubna's dear friends, Bela, Tanvir, who are with us tonight. It's us. Lubna's daughter Noor with me too, and the two grandmothers and friends. This is from Hawaii days. It has it has Uzma if someone can spot her. And here again with Huma at a conference in Puerto Rico. Lubna's birthday. This is her last birthday on 17th December in California last year. Tomorrow would have been her birthday.
Yeah, December 16 has always been difficult on the country, and the day had already been pretty gloomy because of the 6th anniversary of APS attack. So let us not make it any gloomier and proceed towards Dr. Lubna's school friend, Miss Tanvir Kiani, who I'm sure have very fond and happy memories of her. Ma'am, your mic is mute.
So can you hear me? Yes, Lubna is a very dear, near friend to me, no matter ages has been gone. We had been in contact, even at times in life, after 4 to 5 years, meet each other. I met her when I was in my school time. She came to Bahawalpur from Lahore along with her sisters and brothers, siblings. She joined the school and then we were together in the college. A very loving, very passionate person. And yes, the activism in her was from the very beginning. She could not tolerate the social injustice. Even at that time, during our college days, we had a group Tal, Tanvir, Afshan, Lubna, and we always used to raise voice whenever there was any injustice. I do remember that once our college principal, she objected where we used to park our cars, and while the husband of the principal was going through that place and observing, gazing the girls, uh, we together had a fight with the principal. We asked her, we said that such things are not going to acceptable. Just imagine, we were college students, very young. But Lubna never used to give up against any of the injustice. She was a dear friend. We had been reading, as Saba mentioned, reading many books. We were the friends of since we started reading Mills and Boons, sharing Harold Robbins, Sidney Sheldon. And I always used to say, if she bought any of the book, and on the other day, next day, she used to say, "Oh, Kiani, I have finished it." I used to say, "How did you?" And above all, she always secured very high marks. Our teachers were very surprised that we were also the bunkers. We used to bunk the classes, went to the canteen. Yes, in our physics class, we bunked the period and we were being caught up by the teacher. She said, "You people were not in the class." And abruptly, Lubna said, "Teacher, your lecture is not interested." So we went to the canteen. We had very good memories. Then she left for her studies to join her parents abroad. And then she came back, she did her graduation. Uh, I went to college along with my college trip to Lahore. She was there to receive me. And for the first time in my life, I went to the restaurant, hotel. She took me along with her. We had a Chinese food in Lahore. I remember it was somewhere near Liberty. Then we decided, I said that I want to pursue my studies and I want to come in this city. She helped me out. While she went abroad, somehow she passed her exams earlier than me. And then when I came to Punjab University, she was ahead from me. Rather, she was senior, but definitely in another subject area. After our university classes, I used to walk to her house in Maltown Extension, and the whole evening we used to spend together. It was a lovely time. She is a elder daughter to her family. She was a pride. She always managed the things as whenever the mama said, her mama, great mama. When auntie died, she called me and we talked for an hours and hours. Even I mentioned Saba that in the month of August, she called me at a very odd timings. Usually, we used to talk when it used to be in the evening time. But she rang me, that was afternoon, and I was surprised. I said, she wanted to talk and talk. And after a very long time, we had a chat more than an hour, discussing many of the things, even discussing, talking the things as child we had been doing, laughing. And it was, I really regret that if I would have been knowing she is soon going to leave us, I wouldn't have ended up the call. I would have continued till her last time. she was, it's really heartbreaking when I say was. She is in my heart. She has been in my heart since, I must say, a few times I said I know Saba is very close to her, and but once I said, Saba, I'm more close to you because since childhood we had been friends together. But every friend has a very, very special place in her heart. She's the wonderful person, and forever she's gonna remain in her heart. The last time when she talked to me, she was talking about Noor. Even she sent me pictures of the girls, young girls, and asked me, "Okay, Khala, identify your niece Noor." And yes, there I was. She was surprised. She said, "How could you recognize?" I said, "Come on, Lubna. She's my niece. I can recognize her." And then she said that, yes, I'll come to Pakistan and I'll bring her together along. Even this year,
Sorry to
in
interrupt.
March,
Yeah, can
I'm out.
terribly sorry if you can please wind up.
Okay. Uh, I have few words to say about her. She is in her heart and she will be. And today, this event uh, remind us that it is her bonding. All of us are together. May Allah bless her. And we are always there for the Noor baby. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Without any
Isha.
delays, I move towards another of her school friend, Miss Nabila Zar Malik.
You, Aisha. And unfortunately, I was not with her in the school time. I first met Lubna when we joined master's course at Punjab University. She was a genius. Everyone wanted to be close to her. I was a science graduate trying not to fail. We were not close in our university years. We were in different friend groups. But I remember her as a pretty girl with glasses, beautiful complexion, a smile on her face all the time. She was a very fashionable person, always wearing fresh colors with matching shoes, bags, jewelry, and a very energetic person. People who came to know her towards the end may not know this about her, but she was very energetic and an enthusiastic person and participating in all the activities. One day, I walked into the department to find out that my class is on strike. Somebody made me wear a black band and told me that we are protesting against the chairperson because he failed a girl in his subject for refusing to spend time with him. Well, the poor girl, all she did was cry, but Lubna stood up for her and demanded that her paper be rechecked.
We have probably lost you, Miss Nabila. We can't hear you. I think there's a problem with her connection. Um, yes. So after Punjab University, Dr. Lubna spent some pressure years of her life in Hawaii, where she did her master's from the University of Hawaii. And we have her friend, Professor Dr. Huma Ahmed-Ghosh from Hawaii. I think there is a problem with Ms. Nabila's connection, so I'll proceed towards Dr. Huma.
Thank you very much, Asha, and especially to Saba for doing this. I know how hard and heart-wrenching this has been, but in 1990, I was married with two very young kids. I landed in Hawaii for a postdoc. And there I ran into Saba and Lubna. And I met this sparkly, bright, creative girl, much younger, who was, हम लोग कहते हैं छाई हुई थी हमारे life में. She was there, you know, as this very sparkly person. And she brought a freshness and beauty to my life with her smile and warmth. And, you know, since then, the rest is history. This is 30 years ago that I met her. And we collaborated since then. She moved to the mainland, as they call it, and we had similar research interests on many conferences and many panels. In fact, we were on 2 panels this fall, which did not happen regretfully because of COVID, but I wish one of them did take place because I'd have got to see Lubna. We traveled to Puerto Rico. That was a great fun trip with Lubna, who kept dragging me to the beach and running into the water. And I said that her love for life was irrepressible. That little girl in her always shone. Through her adulthood, her stellar career, her prolonged illness, she always had that little girl quality that made anybody with her smile and feel young again. She will be forever missed and remembered. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Huma. Well, it was probably in Hawaii, if I'm not wrong, where she began another beautiful chapter of her life by marrying her husband, Rajib Akhter. And he's with us today, so we'd like to hear some from him as well.
Thank you, Aisha, and thank you, the whole SDPI team, for doing this. And as Huma said, I know it must have been very, very difficult for Saba to do this. I know how close she was with her. And also Lubna talked very fondly of her SDPI days and also her colleagues, some of whom I know personally. I met you guys at SDPI. I met Lubna in 1989. Very vibrant, full of energy, of course, very bright. And the most beautiful woman I've seen, you know, so with all that. She gave me my first lesson in gender inequality. And it was in a restaurant in Hawaii. The discussion was so lively, to put it mildly rather, that everybody was looking at us. And I was just hoping that when will this discussion be over? I only knew her for a month at that time. She came out and she said, you know what, you should come by my dorm tomorrow and pick up a book from me. I gladly accepted because I really wanted to see her again. So I went and picked up the book, and that book was Second Sex by Simone de Beauvoir. So that was the beginning of it. You talk about activism that you have seen. I lived through it myself for 31 years. So we had many hours of discussions on books that she recommended, books that I loved reading. Although I was a science major, I was in computer science. And we became very close friends, very, very close friends. Then, and it was a larger, we were a larger part of a larger group of friends. There was Saba, there was Asma, Uzma, who is here, also Javed, Mong, and many others. We used to go to the beaches together. We did barbecue together, and sometimes we just sat around, and Satwant used to make his famous masala chai. So we would sit down and just sit around and talk. Let me fast forward to 1997. Lubna and I got married. In 2004, we had our beautiful daughter, Noor. Lubna used to call Noor her miracle. And some of you know probably why. It was clinically it was difficult for her to conceive. It was a very difficult pregnancy. The first and foremost, I would say she was my friend. I just happened to become her spouse. We never had a very conventional role. We never followed a conventional role in our marriage. I supported her career. She supported mine. I supported her life. She supported to the best of our abilities, actually. That bond of friendship sustained us in our marriage, like any other marriage. It helped, it guided us actually through some very difficult times that she and I went through. When her health actually started to fail, I was dead against her going back to Pakistan for her field work, for a research. And the doctors were of the same opinion. But then she wanted to continue, and I fully supported her because I knew how much she loved going back to Pakistan, doing her research work, and of course, in between, getting together with her friends like Saba, Farzana, Bela, Tanvir, Uzma. So, despite my concern for her health and at some point her physical security because she was going to SWAT, I never asserted myself in the sense that I never told her that don't go, or said that made it difficult for her. That was the kind of marriage that we had. She used to tell me that every time her flight took off from Pakistan, she cried. She told me this many times. I just wanted to grow old with her, go for walks, holding hands. I told her many times, especially when we fought, and she would say, "Me too." That you need to build that up. And right now, when I look back at things, right, I just miss the little things. For example, like she would come back from a hair appointment, and I would say like, "Oh, you look so beautiful." And she would laugh and she would say, "I see, you are always so biased." I just miss those little things, and it gives me comfort to know that I know she is at a better place today, and I will see her soon. And when I see her, it will be unburdened of any worldly worries, duties, responsibilities, missed expectations. Just pure, simple, blissful companionship, and that's what I long for. I don't think I can say anything more anymore. Thank you so much for this time, and thank you for doing this for Lubna. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your emotions with us. In year 2000, we have this short video promo which was supposed to be a happy one, but now that we cannot play the audio with it, it had Dr. Lubna's favorite song in the background. Maybe Dr. Saba can tell us more about it.
I'm sorry, I can't really translate that song. It was an old, I think, 50s Indian movie song. I can't really translate anything. Sorry, Aisha, to let you down like this. I don't even know if I can play it on my phone, and if people happen to hear it, even then the software police will catch us, I guess.
So it's Ajib Dasta Hai Ye Kahan Shuru Kahan Khatam from an old Bollywood movie. Maybe while it play, we can proceed to our next panelist, Dr. Farzana Bari. As I said, in the year 2000, she moved to Pakistan, and in Pakistan, she initially worked with ASR Institute of Women's Studies and later joined SDPI. We have some of her friends on the panel here from her time in Pakistan, and Dr. Farzana Bari is one of them. So while we see the pictures, maybe Dr. Farzana can express her sentiments as well. Ma'am, your mic is mute, probably. Yes, it's mute.
So I was just saying thank you, SDPI, and thank you, Saba, for bringing us together to celebrate Lubna and her life and the time we were all fortunate to spend with her. I think it's still very hard for all of us to talk about her in the sense that her presence was always so. She has a big presence, so it's very difficult to talk while she is physically not with us. I actually met Lubna at Saba's place a long time ago. And I think immediately I felt that Lubna and I immediately got connected, because I think that she radiates the kind of energy, the positive energy and the love and the warmth. So we immediately sort of got connected. And ever since, I think we spent countless evening at Lubna's flat when she was in Pakistan, and we used to listen music. And Lubna and I were also very fond of dancing, like Saba. So sometime just two of us get up and dance. I think Huma was saying, Lubna had that amazing energy, full of life. She had that. And basically, I think when we talk about her, people were talking about activism. I think she was essentially an activist academic because she was very passionate about, for the social change. And I remember once, I think that was back in when it was the Zafran Bibi's case. Saba, you remember what was I think it was 2012. Was it Musharraf's time? And this was a Zafran Bibi this was a woman whose husband was actually in prison, and she got pregnant because she was raped by actually the husband's brother, brother-in-law. But then she was sentenced to stoning to death. Because her husband was in jail, and so there was a protest, and I think Lubna was with me, and we were also lathi charged at that time, and I remember that she had a fever that day, and when she was beaten up, I was dragging her, and I was telling this police women, don't drag her, she is not well, she is not feeling well. And but Lubna was like so kind of angry, and so we all got into the bus, and I think we were driven away. So she was basically an activist, and I think academically, of course, as she was brilliant. And whenever she come back from her field work, she has a lot to talk. And I will always say, Lubna, stop it, you are over analyzing, but she will keep on, trying to get into those sort of nuances. And so she, in that way, I think she was a thorough sort of an academic. I think what was impressed me most about Lubna was also her resilience, because we all know that she was suffering from this autoimmune, illness, but it never came in her way, and I always admire her. I was full of admiration, the way she continued with life and continued with her career. Actually, I'm very disappointed with her, and I really think why she has to give up. This was not our Lubna. Sorry. Sorry, I think, please move on. I don't think I can talk more. Sorry, I thought I will not cry. So, but thank you.
Sorry about your loss. We have Miss Nabila Zar. She has joined again and she wants to speak. So we'll take her now. We'll go back to her.
Thank you, Aisha, and I'm sorry for this disruption. I had 3-4 things set up, so it won't happen, but it happened anyway. I was just telling you that during the university time, we weren't that close, but close to our exams, my group of friends decided to dump me. Why, I don't know to this day, but Lubna saw me, how miserable I was, roaming around alone, and she welcomed me in her rather very large friend group. University ended, but our friendship never did. She became a very important part of my life. We visited each other's home on a daily basis. We would spend endless hours discussing movies, literature, but mostly life philosophies over a bag of chips and coke. We discovered together that we were both hopeless romantics, and we knew if we did not change ourselves, we'd head into big heartbreaks. We would laugh at smallest things and knew as long as we have each other's, we will be fine. She would often come pick me up, we'll go for long drives, listen to music. These are my memories of her. Over the years, I discovered Lubna was the most honest person I had ever had a chance to meet. I wouldn't be wrong to say that she didn't know how to, or even hide the truth. She was the most generous soul I had ever known. I went through my makeup and realized 90% of what I own, and I own a lot, was gifted to me by her. I used to call her Santa Claus because she didn't believe in giving one gift. She would give a bag full of gifts. She didn't just adopt me, but my entire family. Before I got kids, my younger sister was on her list for gifts giving. Both my sons love Lubna Khala. My eldest son and Lubna were at one time traveling with me to Islamabad. We booked in a room, B&B. And in the morning when I came back from my meeting, I saw a breakfast tray in the room. So I got angry with my son because I thought it was his doing. And Lubna smiled and she said that we didn't feel like going downstairs and have breakfast with strangers. She spoiled the kids and kids loved her. My younger son joined Boston and she put him on her family phone package and told me it will be her contribution to his education. Both my kids have independent relationship with her and they enjoyed discussing books at length, something that we never did. She was a very bold woman. She lived her life on her own terms. When she first came back from Hawaii, she came straight to see me and she said, Bales, I'm in love. And I could see that in her face. She once told me that people get scared of my capacity to love. It took me a while to understand what she meant, but I think I do now. She was in the US for years and we had not been in a regular contact either. But the day my father died, she called and she asked me, are you okay? I had a very strong feeling that I should call you and get in touch with you. My mother passed away 4 years ago. Same thing happened. I had a dacoity. The next morning, the first person who lands at my place is Lubna. Before going to her work, she said, I felt like I needed to see you. This is the connection which came from that unmeasurable capacity to love that she talked about. Her illness would sometimes exhaust her and she would say, I don't want to carry on like this. And I would tell her, Lubna, I will not like this world without you. And I was right. I miss my friend. I miss her unconditional love. I miss how she could only see the good in me and made me feel so special and precious. Passing off someone so special always leaves one with regrets. I wish I had pushed her harder to move back to Pakistan so we could have had more time together. I did find a few photographs, but I won't take a chance with this net. I just want to end with a verse from Ghalib that keeps coming back to me. Makdur hoon to khak se poochun ke ए लईम, तूने वो गंजहाए करामाया क्या किए? Translated, it says, if God gives me power, I will like to ask the ground, O miser, what did you do with such priceless treasures? Thank you.
Thank you, Nabila. We have a video message from Dr. Shahrukh Rafi Khan, former ED SDPI. I would kindly play that.
I'm privileged to make a few remarks for my colleague Lubna Chaudhry, who sadly passed away. I'll make the comments, the remarks based on the time we served SDPI together. Now, I served SDPI for about 9 years and saw many young scholars come through the institution. And they were at an early stage of their career, and understandably, they were looking for what they could get. Incidentally, they'd also benefit the institute. But Lubna was different. She was a giver. And she owned the institution and contributed to institution building. She mentored many young scholars and had a lasting impact in terms of her research contributions and also building the survey unit through the young scholars she mentored, who then carried the torch forward. Lubna was an innovative researcher and contributed to the institution at a time when it was somewhat fragile financially. She contributed to bringing projects into the institution with her friend and colleague Saba Khattak. And she did the research on her own terms. I remember one project on poverty that they brought on board. This was to be funded by the World Bank, but they were going to make sure that the terms of reference led them to do the research in the direction that they wanted to. And I was also impressed at Lubna's capacity to cut through to the heart of the matter, went straight for the jugular.
We have Dr. Foqia Sadiq Khan, another of our colleague from SDPI. We'll request her to speak now. Dr. Foqia, probably your mic is mute or we have lost you.
Aisha, I think she's also shared her video, which we can play. Umair, do you have it?
There was a video as well.
It was good to get to know Lubna. She was so full of life when she worked in SDPI, despite the fact that she had her autoimmune disease. Once Lubna and I went to Marriott for something, and on the way back, we stopped at a parking lot and got into some deep conversation. And Lubna looked at me and said, "Foqia, it's our work that saves us." I still remember it very vividly, and that might have been her philosophy of life. Lubna did field work for her qualitative research, and she took it very seriously. She would talk about her field work respondents, their stories, even after the field work was over. So she took her field work and her work very seriously. But it doesn't mean she was all work, and she also had a very vivacious personality, and she knew how to have fun. So she had all these aspects to her life. Last time I met Lubna was in 2010. I'd organized a protest and she came to attend it. We lost contact after that, and I really regret that. I wish we'd stayed in touch. I wish the very best to Lubna's family, her friends and colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Foqia. We have Dr. Kaisar Bengali from her time in SDPI as well.
Thank you. And thank you to SDPI for organizing this, and to Saba for this. I want to address Rajib, Akhter and Noor. Rajib, আপনি কেমন আছে?
জি ভালো, থ্যাংক ইউ।
আমি আপনাকে মিঠু বলতে পারে?
Of course, মিঠু অবশ্যই বলতে পারেন, of course.
Okay, let me switch back to English so others can also understand, but it will be great to someday converse with you in Bengali.
Of course.
Never had the chance to meet you, Mitu, but it seems like I know you because we heard so much about you.
You know, actually, Kaisar, if I may take like 10 seconds of your time, we did meet. We went to Karachi, that village restaurant. You took us there, and Lubna and I. Anyhow, just please continue.
I'm sorry, I don't remember that, but
we'll catch up later. Yeah.
But sure. The time I spent with Lubna was very short, maybe a year and a half, because she came there in 2000. I left SDPI in 2001. But it's not the quantity of time we spent. I think the quality of time, which is has an imprint of its own. A lot of people have said this. With very smiling, positive personality. You know, in Pakistan, we all have a disease. When three people get together, we talk about politics and talk about how bad things are. With Saba, with Lubna and Saba, that opportunity never arose. I mean, the minute we got together, there was something to laugh and have fun. Adults and children are different in a way that adults smile with their lips and their mouth, but children smile with their entire face. And Lubna's smile was that entire face. There was always that child in her. There was a freshness about her, an animated personality. She didn't have to say anything. If you were in her company, you felt that animation, you felt that energy. You would smile yourself. You would just become positive yourself. But what is, I think, most striking about her that I found was her values. A lot of people have values and they make it a point to sort of express it. But she didn't have to do that. Her persona, you know, they emitted those values. You could see that here is a person who was completely genuine. Here is a person with a very superior intellect. And she wouldn't say anything. In fact, she wouldn't talk about herself. She wouldn't brag about anything. She would be very light-hearted. And of course, when there was a serious discussion, her contribution was certainly very, very meaningful. And, you know. And of course, we had our fun times. I think Saba talked about silly jokes. In fact, I remember Lubna more about the silly jokes and the fun that we had. You could pull her leg and she would just smile. She would never take offense. Several times we would just, I think Saba and Foqia and myself, we would land up at her house and raid her fridge. Just say, what's there for food? Khane mein kya hai? Once we went and her entire fridge was empty except one bowl of dal. Of course, we finished dal, which was very good. But throughout, we kept teasing her that we come to your house and all you feed us is dal. And she kept smiling. And then she said, look here, you come to my house without notice, you raid my fridge, you eat my dal, and then you complain about it. She was a delightful person, absolutely, you know. And I think very few friends and people I've met like her. And I think Mitu and Noor, you're so lucky to have someone like her in your lives. We will miss her. I will miss her. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for lightening up the mood. We'll proceed to Dr. Haider Nizamani. He was also a former SDPI colleague.
Okay. So, I don't know. I mean, like I said, you know, speaking about a friend in past tense is disorienting. I mean, and if I sound incoherent, the blame squarely lies with Lubna. I mean, like, so, because she's kind of said, in a way, put us in a situation that that we are having to kind of say, talk about her in past tense. And while listening to all these friends here, literally, I mean, like, so one thing is that all of you have pretty much, I mean, like I said, whatever has to be said and a lot more about Lubna. And I mean, like I said, my target for myself would be that I mean, like I said, I can understand that Farzana could not complete what she had to say. Maybe, I mean, like I said, if I can avoid that for myself, I'll consider myself lucky. But so first of all, Saba, thank you very much for organizing this session. And because I mean, like I say, in many ways, Lubna kind of touched lives of all of those who are here today. I don't know whether I can even claim to be her life. I wasn't her lifelong friend. We lost touch. We met kind of just the sheer coincidence, I would say, or the luck had it, that at the end of 2001, I came to SDPI, and for next 18 months, somebody, I mean, like say, who started off as a colleague, then maybe an acquaintance, but very quickly it turned into what I would call a bond of friendship. Somebody, I mean, like say, whether as Kaisar just said, whether it was say her, generosity, that whether it was her, I think one house that she lived that was right at the corner of supermarket and the road that leads to what is called Kosar Market. So she used to live upstairs. I mean, like I said, that portion, and that sort of that. I think I'm partially colorblind, but I think it was kind of a whitewashed type of a house. So whether it was that under that roof, or whether it was Saba's home, I mean, one thing that probably all of us who knew Lubna can associate with or remember her was her infectious laughter. That is, I mean, like, whenever I thought about or think about her, it is her laughter that just kind of strikes me and comes to my mind. And with that laughter, I mean, of course, it was all those silly jokes, I mean, like I said, and everything. But then here she was in her very small frame, so much energy. And I always thought that why this lady, why does she almost to the extent of that like childlike restlessness, that why does she want to kind of say, achieve so much in such short time? Probably, I mean, like I said, now maybe with the benefit of hindsight, probably she knew that she doesn't have that much time here. So she would, I mean, like, to me, it looked that she lived every moment of her life and she radiated that energy to everyone around her. I mean, like I said, one Nasir Kazmi's share comes to my mind when I think about her, which is that गए दिनों का सुराग लेकर किधर से आया कहाँ गया वो अजीब मानूस अजनबी था मुझे तो हैरान कर गया वो. Like, she was a strangely familiar friend that just kind of just like in a way lit up our lives, and somehow the other is physically no more. But I would simply say that, I mean, like I said, for me, when I was thinking about those days and my friendship with Lubna, thought that it's not only in the jokes and the conversations and the banter that the friendship is kind of tested or cemented. And I was just thinking, and then suddenly, I mean, like I said, the other thing that came to my mind was Simone Weil's sentence, where she wrote that attention is the rarest and purest form of human generosity. And when I think about Lubna, she was generous to the core because she gave that attention in the purest form to friends. In 2002, I had lost somebody very close to me. I'll just wrap up. So I had lost somebody very close to me, and not many people even in SDPI knew about it because I think the loss was so personal. And here was Lubna, who would come to, like, say, my house and just sit in silence with me. And I think in that silence, she shared so much that, I mean, I can't even put in words. I would have basically concluded with a share of Ghalib, but that share of Ghalib has already been recited by her other friend. So once again, I mean, like, I have no words, but the way she left, again, I would turn to good old Ghalib because I can't say those things. I can't express those words. So Ghalib said that tum kaun se aise the khare dadu sitat ke karta malakul maut takaza koi din aur. I mean, like, she should have dodged that. I mean, she should have sent that whosoever came to take her life should have kind of said that, okay, we'll kind of settle these bills or scores some other day. But the way she was, probably, I mean, like I say, she didn't argue. So she should have cheated that. But I think that was not her. So and we love her, and thank you, Saba, for organizing this.
Thank you, Dr. Heather. The time is short, but what I want to add to this is there's nothing better than a life lived to the fullest. And I think one thing we can all be happy about is her living her little life to the fullest and doing things larger than that little life of her. With that, we proceed towards Dr. Sajid Kazmi. He was also a former SDPI colleague of her.
Thank you very much, Aisha, and thank you, SDPI and Saba. All of us are here for Lubna, and I'll address Noor that look how beautiful your mother was, how loved she was from all of her friends. And with me, her relationship was a little bit different. The moment I met her, she immediately told me, as Saba told in her speech, that when she lost her brother, and the moment she met me, she framed me in that category. She said, "You, although don't resemble to him, but the way you treat me, you are like my moon." So since then, from 2000 to this day, I am her moon. She used to call me her brother, younger brother. She guided me. She helped me through all the professional activities. We worked together on that project which Shahrukh was mentioning on the poverty, and that was a unique aspect of poverty which we were looking at. And during that field work, we spent like 3-4 months in the field. There used to be a lot of heated debate among us about the methodology, especially the debates with Harris. Those used to be very heated debates. When in back in 2001 or 2002, I went to Washington to attend a meeting, and she told me, just call Mithu and he will take care of you. So I called him. We could not meet in Washington, but when I came back, the first question was, "Tell me, did he look after you?" I said, "Yes." He talked to me like 2-3 hours. No, no, he should have come to New York to see you. I said, no, it was far off and I didn't have that much time. This was how she used to be. And I still remember a few more occasions. There are so many things I can go on and on, but keeping in mind the time restraint, I'll just share a couple of more things with you. When she was going back to US, she called me, Asad and Shabazz. She said, okay, I'm leaving in that house which Heather has mentioned. We went there. She said, I have these few things. Now decide amongst yourself which you want to pick. There was a music system, there was a sofa, and there was one more thing I can't recall now. Asad and Shabazz might remember. So I immediately picked that music system. I said, this will remind me of you. So it is still somewhere in my house in Pakistan, although I'm not living there for the last 10-15 years. So it's still there. I have kept it in my house, and I used to listen music on that. And it was like, as others have mentioned, she was an activist to the core. She used to find all the reasons for her activism, and she stood for people, stood for the cause which she was advocating. In 2014 or 15, when I completed my PhD, and I called her, I said, Lubna, I'm looking for a job. And she was so excited. Oh, come on. Let's find something at Binghamton. I'll definitely find. I'll send me your CV and I'll share it with my colleagues in the business school and in the economics. And it would be good if you come over there. She was a wonderful person. There were so many aspects about her life. And as Heather said, he surprised us by leaving us so early. I'll become emotional before that. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sajid. We have Mr. Asad Naqvi, also one of her former colleagues from SDPI.
Thank you, everyone. It's definitely a very difficult moment to speak about Lubna, but I'm grateful to SDPI, to Saba, to the whole team for creating this opportunity to jointly grieve the untimely departure of Lubna, but also to celebrate her successes, her achievements, her influence on our lives, and pay our tribute. We are joined in grief and pain and prayers for Lubna today. I met Lubna at Saba's place during last few months of my work at SDPI. And she turned out to be my mentor, my friend, a sister. I'm not sure my sister or my sister-in-law, because she always stood on the side of my wife when we had arguments, but definitely an inspiration. Our conversations ranged from feminism to feudalism, to secularism, to spirituality. Every discussion unfolded a new dimension of Lubna's perspective, her personality, and her academic depth for me. A common thread always was her passion for just, fair, and equal humanity. I come from a farming family in rural Punjab, and I remember that sometime Lubna got irritated my arguments, and she had a very special gesture that she will fold her hand and put her kid and say, "Tum nahi samjhoge." Once we had a longer argument, and we didn't talk for a few days. I thought we were like completely on opposite sides, but that also unfolded that what a loving person she was. I can read out her email, and she said, "Dear Asad, are you angry with me? Write to me. Let's have an argument, but write to me. Lots of love and regards, Lubna." After some time, she understood that I enjoy irritating her with my pro-feudal arguments, and she adapted her response accordingly, though the gesture remained similar. And she started saying, "Tum kabhi nahi sudroge." But she did change and completely transformed my analytical framework. I felt that Lubna took things seriously and sometimes too seriously. Once I asked her, "How do you relax yourself?" And what she said was completely unexpected. She said, "I go to my ancestral village and sit on the grave of my younger brother. Usse bahut sukoon milta hai." Once me and my wife visited her apartment, and we were quite late in Islamabad. So my wife asked her, "Lubna, aap kab soti hain?" And when I was thinking about saying something today, I recalled that response, and he said, "Jab mar jayenge to so jayenge." For the last few years, we have only been in touch by email. In one of her last emails, she wrote to me, "I miss you and look forward to seeing you again. It was nice when you came to see me in Binghamton. Please do that again, or let me know when you are in New York. Or maybe I will just come to see you in Geneva. Lots of love." Dear Lubna, I could not come to see you again, but I'm sure we will meet again. I know you are in a better place now, without illness and pain. I still miss you terribly. I'm borrowing Rumi's word to describe you. You were not a drop in the ocean, but you were the whole ocean in a drop. May God keep blessing you, and we miss you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Asad. We will move toward Mr. Shehbaz Bukhari. He was also her former colleague from SDPI.
I'm honored to be a part of all these friends. Dr. Lubna, she was a uniting force in her life. Now, after her departure, she has proved that she was. That's why all of us are together. My acquaintance with Dr. Lubna was in 2001. Dr. Shahrukh, Rafi Khan, and Dr. Sajid, they gave the reference of a poverty study. I was part of that. We were used to stay 10 to 12 days in each village. That was the anthropological approach. And one of the district, Multan, Tehsil, Alipur. We were staying in a rest house where the 5 rivers, that's the junction of 5 rivers. We had only 2 rooms. We were 10 team members, and we were used to sit in the lawn. There were trees, long trees, and daily 2 owls, they were used to sit there. May, Sajid, Haras, and other team members were used to sit there. One day, Lubna came from, rushing from her home after midnight and said, "What are you doing? There are only owls on the trees." Then Haras said, "Upar ullu hai, niche ullu ke patte hai." She was very witty. And we were used to sit in the lawn and share. And she said, "Shahbaz, have you noticed this feudal system?" Indeed, she was a great advocate of human rights, especially women's rights. She said, "Have you ever noticed whenever the tenant does something wrong, he is punished by the landlord, and when that person go back to his home, in anger, she brutally beat the women, her wife, and the kids are getting psychotraumatic regarding the boys. They will go out from the home, will start playing, and they will forget everything. But the girls, they are not allowed to go out of the homes. They are suffering from psychological issues. She was against early age marriage. In that remote village, we met a number of girls of 14, 15, 16 years that were married. And she was used to say, "Shahbaz, these are the days of these girls to play with the friends and go to the schools, but they are carrying babies, children of children." She was very dynamic personality. I'm one of the luckiest person that had opportunity to stay with her and her father in her village in district Narwal. And whenever there was a phone ring, his father, he was old man, he was used to go to the phone and say, "Hello, yes, yes, Dr. Nazir is speaking." Then I can still see the smile of Lubna. She come to me and whisper. On the other side, they are asking about me. Now my father will say, "Lubna, it's your phone." And he will go directly to his room. He will not sit with us. And that always happens. And after 2-3 hours, she had discussion with her father. "Abbu, you should remember when I am in village at my home, there are 2 doctors." By the way, her father's name was Dr. Nazir. She was Dr. Lubna Nazir. So that was interesting debate on their part. Now, I was discussing with Kassar and Dr. Farzana Bari that photographs you can see on the screen. It was 2nd May 2002 when we had demonstration against stoning death sentence is given to Zafran Bibi. I'm just reading 2-3 lines. We, the human activists, were holding a peaceful demonstration in front of Parliament House in exercise of our fundamental rights, the freedom of assembly and expression. Suddenly, the demonstration was attacked brutally by the police just as we were about to disperse. Firstly, they targeted the men who were pulled off, curbed, slapped, beaten, grabbed by the throat, and dragged towards the police buses. Then women intervened to stop physical violence and were also subjected to physical abuse by pulling off the dupatta, kicking, threatening, and using abusive language. I believe it is the way this paper is only with me that I have shared with you. And this paper is the part of her life, her emotions, because she wrote this, Dr. Lubna wrote this letter with the consultation of Dr. Farzana, Bari, and myself. And the photograph that was shown by you, one of my friends from Dubai, he sent to me, that is, I think, 3rd May 2002, that was published in the front page of the Gulf newspaper. Anyhow, cutting in short, she was used to, in the opening remarks, Saba shared about UK embassy bribe. Dr. Lubna came to me. She said, I'm the lucky person. She had a blind trust as Saba had on me. She said, we have just stories, but we need something black and white. And you are the person you can bring that. At early in the morning, around 5 a.m., I went to UK embassy from small hills with my camera and small tape recorder. And I captured, photographed, recorded everything, came back and shared with Lubna, and she discussed with Saba, and there was a discussion, and we called a number of journalists. At least the result was there was no bribe, although there was, but not openly, but people coming to the embassy, getting for visa, they had at least shelter and drinking water facility there.
Sorry to cut you, Mr. Shibaz. We are running out of time, and a lot of the hair colleagues are still waiting. Thank you so much. We have a video message from Mr. Ahmed Salim, Senior Advisor at SDPI.
2020 SDPI के लिए बहुत भारी साल पड़ा है। मैं समझता हूँ कि कम से कम 2 ऐसी शख्सियात हमसे बिछड़ गईं जो बहुत अरसे तक वाबस्ता रहीं, ज़ियाउर रहमान और मैडम लुबना। मैडम लुबना से मेरी शनासाई कब हुई ये तो मैं याद नहीं कर सकता, लेकिन इतना मैं कह सकता हूँ कि उनसे ताल्लुक़ इस तरह का बना शुरू में ही कि लगता था कि हमेशा से ताल्लुक़ है। और एक बार बातें करते करते मैंने उन्हें माँ जाई कह दिया, तो वो एकदम हैरान रह गई और कहने लगी कि इतना खूबसूरत टाइटल मुझे आपने दे दिया है। और मैं समझती हूँ कि اس سے بڑا اعزاز میرے لیے کیا ہو سکتا ہے کہ میں احمد سلیم کی ماں جائی ہوں۔ تو پنجابی کا ان کو شوق تھا، پنجابی اچھا بولتی تھیں، اور اگرچہ شادی ان کی ایک بنگالی سے ہوئی، اور یہ بھی عجیب اتفاق ہے کہ بنگال اور پنجاب کی کبھی نہیں بنی، لیکن انہوں نے ایک آئیڈیل زندگی گزاری ایک بنگالی کی وائف بن کر۔ میں سمجھتا ہوں کہ پروفیشنلی وہ جتنی پرفیکٹ تھیں اتنی انسان دوست بھی تھیں، اتنی ہی اچھی انسان بھی تھیں۔ مثال کے طور پر جینڈر پہ ان کا جو کام ہے وہ ہمیشہ فخر کرتا رہے گا ایس ڈی پی آئی کہ اس پائل کا کام کسی اور نے نہیں کیا۔ اسی طرح انہوں نے اور موضوعات پر بھی کام کیا۔ میری ایک دو اسٹڈیز جو مائن ورکرز کے بارے میں تھی وہ انہیں بہت پسند تھی، اور وہ کہتی تھی کہ یہ مجھے دکھائے بغیر اس کو پبلش کر دو۔ یہ ایک تعلق کی بات تھی، لیکن اس سے زیادہ بات یہ تھی کہ ان کو اس میں ان کی ہیومینٹی جو تھی وہ اس کی مائن ورکر کی اسٹڈی میں ان کو نظر آئی، اور کہنے لگی کہ مائن ورکرز کو اتنی سمپتھی سے، اتنی محبت سے کسی نے ڈپیکٹ نہیں کیا جس طرح آپ احمد سلیم آپ نے کیا ہے۔ اور مجھے یاد ہے ایک اور اسٹڈی تھی میری جس کو انہوں نے بہت لائک کیا، اور کہتی تھی کہ کاش میں اس طرح کی اس پائے کی کوئی تحریر کر سکتی، اور وہ تھی مسلیوں کے بارے میں۔ پنجاب کے مسلی جو ہیں ان کے بارے میں ایک اسٹڈی تھی، اور وہ بھی چائلڈ لیبر کے حوالے سے تھی۔ مسلی بچوں کے ساتھ جو زیادتیاں ہوتی تھیں ان کو انہوں نے بڑا سراہا، اور مجھے کہا کہ میں چاہتی ہوں کہ یہ، تو میں نے اسی تعریف کو سن کر وہ اسٹڈی ان کے نام ڈیڈیکیٹ کر دی تھی۔ اور میرا تو جی چاہتا ہے کہ اپنی زندگی بھر کی جو کمائی ہے، جو کام ہے، ان کے نام اسٹڈی کر دوں، ان کے نام ڈیڈیکیٹ کر دوں۔ ایک ایسا تعلق جو میڈم لبنہ کے ساتھ بنا تھا وہ
Dr. Saba mentioned a lot of her great decisions in life, and another one of Dr. Lubna's great decision is Dr. Abid Qayyum Sulehri, ED SDPI. So I'd request him to speak about his time with her.
Well, thank you. First of all, I'll thanks Saba for accepting SDPI's request and inviting all the friends for this reference. That was really overdue. Lubna's, when I joined and I told her that I come from Narowal, so she immediately adopted me. And she said, okay, so you are from my ancestral village. And the title that she gave me was Chota. So she said, you are our Chota. And that Chota, I remember that every time she used to meet me, so her phrase was that, Abid, bache bade ho gaye, hum chote ke chote rahenge. So the children, they have grown up, but we are still children. And it was even during her last visit when she came to Pakistan. I remember when Rajib, he visited SDPI. So he called me to the Khoka. It was a small hut at the back side of our office in Diplomatic Enclave. And then she introduced me to this gentleman who is flying from United States. It was quite, I think it was summer month, quite hot. And she said, Abid, meet him. He's me too, my husband. And I wanted to offer him a special lunch. And the lunch was at a Khoka, just at the backside of our office. So, and then she explained that she had told so much about that Khoka to Rajib, that Rajib had this inquisition at what is this Khoka, and she wanted to have a lunch there. And we were sat on those bricks there in the Khoka, and we had our lunch. Some of the things that she left for me before she went to US was her pile of books, which is still there in my office. So while she was leaving, she came and she had made all this 6 or 7 books that she had selected for me, and she asked me to go through them. And she was actually very, I would say, experienced mentor. So she knew what is it that and how she would like to convince me to read some of those things that she wanted me to. So she left those books for me. Another strength of her was keeping contacts. Of course, as all of them mentioned, they used to, whenever she used to come to Pakistan, she used to make a point to visit SDPI, to visit me, and we used to go for a lunch. And she used to bring me a packet of coffee. So all the time, every time she used to come to Pakistan, she used to give me enough coffee that I could then consume for next 4 or 5 months. The last email that I received from her was on 1st of September 2019, where she expressed that she wanted to have a break and she was really looking forward to find a place at SDPI for 1 year. So she said that give me a job for 1 year, I need a break. Salary doesn't matter. I don't care if the salary is not too much, but please call me over. And then I called her on her WhatsApp and we were just laughing. And I was asking her that why don't she come and she takes over SDPI and I will go and I'll find something else. And she said, okay, then get ready, I'll come and I'll be the executive director and you can go and you can find another place. But afterwards we lost contact and then it was COVID. We could never heard from her, but I'm thankful to all of the friends who joined tonight, and we are remembering her. May her soul rest in peace, and my best wishes for Noor and Rajib.
Thank you, Dr. Abid. In 2004, Dr. Lubna moved to Binghamton, and we have Dr. Denise, her colleague from Binghamton. Thanks to all of her colleagues from US. You have been there since the beginning and you have been waiting, and I know you have a lot to say, and now we are running short of time. So if you would please be as concise as possible. Dr. Denise, your mic is mute.
All right, so thank you guys for having this. Lubna was in our Department of Human Development. I'm having difficulty, I hope I get through this. But she was also affiliated with a couple other departments. You should know that she was also affiliated with Latin American and Caribbean Studies and the Asian and Asian Diaspora Studies program at BU. And also the Women, Gender, and Sexuality Studies program. She was very busy. You know, she's accomplished academic, she was a gifted teacher, she was a great mentor, you know, her scholarship was transformative, but her legacy of activism that she started in Pakistan extended into Binghamton University. She started a master's program in human rights, you know, and her quest and her goal and her thought was that we would be creating a cadre of human rights activists through this program. She was on the forefront of fighting for racial injustice in university and also in the community. She's a founding member of an organization that was a collective of faculty who were at the forefront of fighting for racial justice in a climate of racial indifference and racism on the university, called FARAB. She stood shoulder to shoulder with students at demonstrations. You know, Lubna, as you guys have always demonstrated, was one that hungered for justice. And she provided a lot of us an example of mentorship and tools to make sense of the kind of personal pain that we had as we faced injustice, not just on the campus, but in just the community in general. You know, her concern for the community because of color is not just in the scholarship and in her activism. She was the member or the director of 25 doctoral committees. She made it her life ambition to make sure that any student of color that came into university seeking a doctoral degree was going to be successful, you know, which took a lot of time. It's tough to be in predominantly white institutions. She understood that, and she mentored and cultivated a pathway for students, you know, because she was conscious of the struggles they might face. I was one of the students that she mentored. I met her when I was a doctoral student at a dissertation defense of a friend of mine. You know, I saw her as a defense, and she went into her mama bear mode when this student was being unjustly dealt with harshly by her committee. Lubna was not having any of that. She was going to make sure that this student was going to be successful, and she shut them down to make sure that this student got through her defense. I was in love at that point. I would follow her anywhere when I watched what she did at that dissertation. I'm indebted to Lubna not just for her mentorship when I was a student, but also as an academic. She mentored me through the tenure process. But I miss her not because of her activism, because she and her scholarship and her research, which is fabulous. But she was also my friend. And we laughed together and we cried together. And we often just sat quietly together. I loved her, and my life has forever changed because of her absence. Lubna, Rajib, and Noor are part of my family. We are so lucky to have them in our lives. She's auntie to my children and my grandchildren. We had celebrations together. And I've always found our friendship was a place that I could go for healing. She was the first person I would call when life became difficult. Even when she wasn't feeling well, which was often, she always made space for people that she loved. She had an uncanny ability to make people feel special and feel valued. I learned so much just from watching her live her life. And I'm amazed by the collective of people here, you know, on both sides of the ocean, who have been able to say how their lives have been changed because Lubna loved them. Thank you so very much for putting this together. I'm so sorry.
It indeed is superhuman for one person to touch so many lives across oceans, to touch them, to affect them, to give so much love to them all at once and in this shorter period. We'll move toward Dr. Joshua Price. He's the professor and chair of sociology department at State University of New York.
Thank you, Aisha. Also, thank you to Saba and to SDPI for organizing this. And Aisha, just cut me off, like if I go on too long. Lubna was a close friend and a colleague at Binghamton for almost 20 years. Saba asked me to speak about Lubna as researcher. So for the purposes of what I'm going to say, I'm just going to bracket affect and also personal memories of her. So I guess I'd say that I had read her scholarship and it influenced me before I ever met her. And in fact, it was from her that I learned of a kind of theoretical framework that helped me frame my first book on gendered and racialized forms of structural violence. And I think that, she did, as many of you know, her ethnographic work in the Swat Valley rural Punjab, the Karachi suburbs, as well as in Northern California. And I would say that altogether, her body of work provides an archive of working class women's lives in Pakistan and the United States. But I think it's also an ongoing self-portrait of herself as a feminist and as a Muslim, but also it's a dynamic collective self-portrait of how she and other women maneuver through difficult institutional, social, and state violence. As a feminist researcher, she was constantly trying to mine the transformative potential of feminist research to uncover mechanisms of power. Her goal, as she put it once, was to represent reality while accusing it. I've been reading her work this semester again with a really wonderful graduate student, Sarah Sampson. And Sarah compiled her body of published work in one place in a Google Drive. So if any of you want to sort of look at all of her published work together, you could just email me and I can send you a link and you could check it out. It's kind of amazing to reread it now in this context because her work is at once acutely analytical, but it's also incredibly intimate. And there's a kind of radical courage, I would say, in how she engaged in self-revelation in print and in continuously kind of interrogating herself and her own impulses. And she was transgressive in every which way, as many of you know. But she was also, and this her writings reveal this, a kind of deep ambivalence about her own transgressions. And her work is a kind of ongoing chronicle of unfolding ambivalence about that. The first book I read by her was around 2000. It was called You Should Know What's Right for Me. It's an ethnography of young Pakistani American women and their decision whether or not to put a hijab on. And I'll just say that she felt acutely uncomfortable a lot of the time as she was doing the research, as she documents in her text. So she would be trying to figure out how women were making decisions, but they would also look to her for advice as an older sister. And so she was trying to figure out how to navigate that in her own ambivalence about women's agency, even if they were doing things that she disagreed with profoundly. And so that's one of the things that's kind of, important about that. So she forgoes summing up women's lived realities and somehow conveys the vitality of their lives, even while kind of grappling with the impossibility of capturing their many layeredness, Okay, so I'll also just say that I just read another piece of work by her a few weeks ago on what she called Unruly Women. And I wanted to say also that she incorporated a kind of cultivated a sort of aesthetic sensibility in her writing. And she really wanted to make something beautiful with her writing. And she did this both in her own prose, but also she incorporated her own original poetry. And she painted vivid scenes with a certain emotional tonality to them. The stress is brought on by a transnational economy, the terror of living in a situation of structural or interpersonal violence or living as a racialized minority. But she's also a student of the small gesture, the hurt and grief that register on a person's face. You can see someone's will disintegrate before her eyes. But she also notes how women are sometimes stalwart, resolute, playful, or suddenly disoriented. In this piece on Unruly Women, she describes unruly as girls who enjoyed wandering in and out of bound spaces, women who claim positions of authority in village schools, women who trouble the social imaginary through their acts of intimidation and involvement in local politics in defiance of gendered norms. And I thought that maybe I would sort of captured something of her because, of course, she was an unruly woman. And I thought that sort of portrait of other women and herself in that was implicitly captures something essential to me about her, as it were. So with that, I will just leave it to the next person. And, I really loved her deeply and I miss her terribly. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Joshua. I'd move to Dr. Jacob Feng now. Your mic is mute, Dr. Jacob.
She would have found that really funny. I cherish this opportunity to be here because I can feel that and I can see Lubna in each of you, and it's such an honor. It's such a such an extraordinary privilege to be among this group and to feel your presence and to feel her presence. Thank you all so much for what she said. I met Lubna when I started teaching for the Department of Human Development a few years ago, not too long ago. And I started teaching syllabi that she had developed on migration. And I taught many of the texts that she had written herself. And those were really important for me as a teacher, but also as a writer, because I was finishing my dissertation at the time. And I think I was reading some of the texts that Joshua Price was just talking about. And I could hear her speak which is the rarest of things when you read an academic text, that you can actually hear the person speak when you read them. And then I thought, Lubna is doing this. Now I can do the same. She indirectly authorized me to, by being who she was and by writing the way she did and by being so genuine and sincere, she indirectly authorized me to do the same in my own writing. So she was really instrumental in finding my way and finding my voice in my writing. And also as a teacher. So in each text that I write and in each syllabus that I put together, in each class that I teach, she's very present. And she always will be. She later became our close friend. She showered my daughter with presents. And she was just all around a role model. And I always said, when I grow up, maybe one day I'll become like you, And yeah, when she passed, I picked up the cello again, which I hadn't played the cello for about 20 years. And I wanted to play, I was like, should I play something for the Zoom meeting or not? And then I thought, Lubna would have said, yes, go ahead, do it. But you will be spared that because I broke my thumb when I played with my daughter a few days ago. So you will be spared my lack of musical talent. But the impulse to just, go for it, that will always stay with me. So thank you very much, and much love to all of you.
Thank you, Dr. Jacob. We now have Dr. Gamji from Binghamton as well.
Hi, everybody. Dr. Saba, nice seeing you again. After a long time ago. Rajib, Denise, and Dr. Price, as well as Jacob. So, by the way, I'm no longer at Binghamton. I'm now at Yale University, doing my postdoc at the School of Public Health. So, I honestly don't know where to begin from or where to end with this. But mine will be a summary because I can't narrate anything a lot about my entire life in Binghamton with Dr. Chaudhry and her husband Rajib. I don't know where to start from and where to lead to and where to end. But I would say one key thing, 2 weeks ago, I had this emergency application I had to do, which required recommendation. I cried immediately I saw that email because I was crying because Lubna was alive. That recommendation is going in 1 hour, right there and there. So I cannot give stories. I'll end up crying instead of telling you something. But in general, I think Lubna was not just for me an advisor. She was also my kind of a mom, at the same time a sister. Lubna was my advocate, personal lawyer, if I put it better that way. Whether I asked her or not, even if I say no, she will advocate on my behalf so far as she sees any injustice happening anywhere for me. She was my teacher and my mentor as well. So all of us here understand what all these words will mean for one person. So she have all this for me in any way I could look around. So Lubna for me became as a whole of all everything I need in one person once I was a student at Binghamton, and even after that. Lubna, I met her when I was about to finish my master's program. And I was applying for PhD programs. I was being recruited to go to Texas, and I met her and applied into the public affairs program, with her listed as my advisor. The first during the application after I was accepted, and you know, I had to deal with ISSS. That's the International Student Services Center. And when I went to verify I had an admission, and I wanted to process my documents, they were asking me to go and get some verifications here and there, bring this person, bring that person. And I told them that this is what is going on. The ISSS is pulling my legs, do this, do that, do this, do this. She's like, they're not supposed to ask you all that. You have the admission letter. What again do they want to confirm from anybody? And if they wanted to confirm, they could go online and find it out themselves, since they are in the institution themselves. Or before I see the next 30 minutes, I saw an email copying the president, copying the dean, copying everybody that in the campus, telling them that, okay, this is what ISSS is doing, and it's not fair to minority students, especially African students, coming to this country. There's countless stories of people doing this to students. And mind you, the next 15 minutes, ISSS emailed to apologize and said that was not what they were intending. And I didn't have to verify anything anymore, because ISSS was just asking me unnecessary questions. So that was one of the first activism Lubna did on my behalf, even when it was not asked for. There are several times she would fight for me and my colleagues as students when it comes to being students who are PhD students in a institution where they rely a lot on PhD students to do teaching, research, and what have you. We are often overloaded, and Lubna will be one of the people to say no to, you can't do these two classes, you cannot do this, you cannot do that, and she will actually follow through and make sure it doesn't happen. Personal life, that is hard for me to talk about, because that's where I cry a lot. When I moved from academia and to go to my personal life with her, that is just too much for me to carry, to even talk about. So I'll just say, I can't say much. I only thank Rajib for being part of my life through Lubna, because Lubna introduced me to the family, and they took me in as a brother, and they've been supportive in several ways that I can't even talk about, in terms of, am I hungry? Am I running out of funds to go home? Do I need to help my mom with something in the village in Africa that she's struggling with something? I don't know. That's what I'm saying. It's just something that if I go in, I get to this point where I can't talk. So thank you very much for organizing this. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gamji. We have Dr. Lubna's student, Muhammad Shahryar Islam's recorded message. He had another a clash of a commitment. So, Mary, if you'd kindly play that.
I'm Muhammad Shahryar Islam. I'm from Bangladesh, currently living in Binghamton, New York. And I'm one of the students of Dr. Lubna Chaudhry. I'm very much sorry that I'm not been able to join the session due to some schedule clash. But I just wanted to share my thoughts and memories of Dr. Lubna Chaudhry as my mentor, professor, and elder sister. I basically would like to start the memory of Dr. Lubna Chaudhry as my elder sister, because she never looked like my professor. She always guided me like my elder sister to my wife as well, and a great aunt of my daughter, and my parents also met her. So her memories like elder sister would last forever. And I think as a professor she was also a great person. I never seen a professor like her, because I used to go her place and talk for a long time about different aspects of the academia. And I'm gonna miss her, because I guess I would not find anybody like her in the academia who would like to sit with her student in her place and talk for that long. So her teachings, her sayings, and her advices will be there for me forever. It is fact that I'm going to miss her on my graduation ceremony, because I really wanted her to hold me on the stage. But I'm pretty sure that her prayers will be with me when I graduate and when I take my career as an academic to the future endeavors. And I pray for her that she will be in the best hands of God's, resting in peace, and she will be praying for all of us, I guess.
We have this short clip from Dr. Lubna's last interview with Pakistan Institute of Developmental Economics. I'd request Umair to play that now before we go towards Dr. Saba for her closing remarks.
Yeah. So, ma'am, my last question would be that as an expert in human wood development and in wood development for studies and in human rights and wood development, what do you think should be the swift things or the checklist of things which needs to be done?
I don't have a checklist, but one of the main things that different governments need to do is to kind of look at the fault lines in their healthcare systems and start fixing them, because otherwise pandemics are going to keep on happening. I mean, this is like the first one that's happened, but it seems like we are becoming more prone to them. So we need to fix our healthcare systems so that they are accessible to the poorest of the poor and the marginalized of the marginalized. And that's our first priority, I think. So I don't have a checklist, but that's definitely, I mean, social distancing is not on my checklist. I don't think it's a healthy situation. I mean, over here in the United States, a 1-year-old got the virus and he was taken away from his family and put into isolation. I mean, that can kill a baby by itself. So social distancing itself is actually per se as a way to force people into getting better or force the society into getting better is okay for a few days, but it's not a long-term remedy. The long-term remedy lies in fixing the healthcare situations around the world, like the first world, third world divide, and then within the first world and the third world, the third world has a first world, and the first world has a third world within itself.
Wow.
That's a fact.
Dr. Saba, if you'd kindly give your closing remarks.
There can be no closure, but yes, there probably can be closing remarks, and I will like to thank everyone. It was an emotional journey. It's a journey in which we learned about one another's experiences, interactions with Lubna. There were moments when I cried. There were moments when I missed Lubna just now. But before I get emotional, her sister asked me to tell everyone about the Lubna Chaudhry Memorial Scholarship that BU has created in her name for human rights students. and I'll just read it out, that the scholarship which carries Lubna's name provides financial support to master's human rights students of color who have been historically underrepresented in higher education in the United States and have demonstrated a commitment to social justice and activism. To make a gift in memory of Lubna Chaudhry, checks may be sent to the Binghamton University Foundation, and the address is given. And please write Lubna Chaudhry Memorial Scholarship in the memo line. I can share the details. I'm sure Denise can too. Thank you, and Lubna will be with us as we continue our work on social justice. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Saba. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Thanks to the beautiful soul that brought you all together here with us tonight. Thanks once again.